Hi, and welcome to Sci-Fi Author Chat. We have with us today Ren Hutchings. Hello, Ren. How are you?
Hello, how are you?
Great. So nice to have you here. Thank you for coming.
Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. So, Ren is, like me, a science fiction and fantasy author, space opera author. Gotta love it. We gals have to stick together, solidarity there in the fandom, as I am also a fan.
Actually,
Yes.
you know what? I should be doing this.
Okay. Duo. Yay! You're a rock. Thank you. So that's in my TBR under Fortunate Stars, which is a debut release for you. Is that
That's
right?
right. Yep, there
Congratulations.
is. And congratulations on your recent book deals,
Thank
too.
you. Yeah, that'll
Big
be
news.
next year's releases, but it's fun to think about. And then, so this is from Solaris Books. And but first, I want to talk about you, and then we'll talk about your book and other works that you're
Okay.
in progress. So, Ren is an SFF writer and writing mentor. Very cool. She has spent most of the past few years working in game dev while plotting twisty space books. My favorite kind. Ren's debut novel, Under Fortunate Stars, was published by Solaris in May 2022. Ren previously worked as a creative producer and managed communications for a nonprofit arts council. She graduated with a BA in history before completing a year of grad school in archaeology.
Mm-hmm.
Was indulging her lifelong passion for nerding out about the past just as much as the future. And you can find Ren on Twitter and Instagram at Void Cricket. That is V as in Victor, OID as in David, Cricket, all one word, Void Cricket. So, and then I love that on your website, which by the way is one of my favorite websites I've ever
Oh,
seen.
thank you.
Yeah, is that you also have some passionate interests like 90s music, old computers with clicky keyboards, um,
Yep.
book playlists, time travel and parallel universe stories. Bring it on.
Love them.
Writing in coffee shops, yes, and aren't we glad that we can hopefully start to do that again?
One day soon. Yeah.
Cats, yes. All forms of hot
Love
beverage,
cats.
yes. History and archaeology, weird mysteries, pop science, cute, stationery. Tell me about it. Using too many different fonts, amen. D&D, fan fiction, old school side scrollers, adorable iPhone games. Yeah, me too. Rambling podcasts where people laugh a lot. I like those too.
Yep.
Never ending board games. Oh, yeah, with 500 house rules. Glitter, bring it on. I see you have some behind you. Star Trek The Next Generation. Thank you, my favorite.
Yes.
Listening to one song on repeat. I have had Copacabana on repeat for 3 days. Liminal
Amazing.
spaces, being near the ocean. Same. Existential questions. Cupcake frosty. Nonsensical inside jokes. Making new creative friends. Happy to call you one. Drafting out of order and color coded checklists. Hello to that. So that's awesome.
You really write all of it out.
I mean, I'm rallying all of that because it's all
It's gotta have something. You
fun.
gotta find something like
It's so
in
much
there
fun.
to.
I'm like nerding out because this is great. I just have to say that I have just been absolutely delighted by your. I'm going to say it. Your Instagram feed is incredible. Probably the
Oh wow.
most well
Thank you.
curated author feed I've ever seen. I follow a lot of Instagram people in creative arts, many of them crafters, home decor people, and authors. And honestly, yours is my favorite feed. So it's
Oh wow, thank you. I am not the most consistent, but I do try to.
well, it's
Um,
just refreshing in an era in which we have so many reels on Instagram that we have some beautiful stills from you, and anything that you put up there, I will watch.
oh, thank you so much.
So thank you. And like I said, your website is beautiful, and you have a newsletter. I understand. So
I do. Also, not terribly consistent, but it is fun when it happens. So it's a good surprise.
excellent. Now let's dive right into some questions. And I would like to know, when did you know, or at least suspect, that you wanted to write science fiction?
Oh wow. I mean, I think I've been writing some form of speculative fiction stories as long as I've been writing stories. And I think I kind of came to that from a pretty young age. My mom is a huge speculative fiction reader and a Star Trek fan. And so I was kind of surrounded by that right from the very beginning. And I think like writing's always been a passion for me. And when I kind of started thinking of my own stories, kind of the first thing that you do is look at the stories that you enjoyed and think about well, how can I write something that feels like this? How could I write something that makes someone feel the way that this story made me feel? And I think SFF is a place that I always found felt like home, both as a reader, as a fan, and then later creatively as a playground to tell my own stories. And
Fantastic. I love that. And I love too that you have the family tradition as well. And parents both liked science fiction and fantasy to a certain extent also, and so Star Trek was a major fixture in my life growing up as well. So, and so leading into that, a classic question, but one that I know we all would like to know is like, who've been your greatest influence in science fiction? And this could be in books, shows, film, or writing, either any of it.
okay, so in space opera, I think originally I read a ton of the classics. So everything that the library had on the shelves and things, the classic sci-fi that my mom had. But in terms of modern space opera, I think my biggest influence is Alistair Reynolds. Um, I think his was the first sort of space opera that I came to on my own that wasn't because someone else had recommended it. Like I kind of read it right as it was coming out. And I think that the influence specifically was about the world building and about how his plots tend to be very layered and twisty. So there's often multiple things going on. There's a mystery elements and sort of puzzle pieces of a story that come together over time. And that's something that I have really, really enjoyed and also thought about how can I do that as a writer? And I don't think that there's anyone before that I'd really looked at in that way, like as a craft influence. Before that, I was very much reading for enjoyment and reading for fun. But I think I also came to his work at a time when I was starting to think seriously about my craft and thinking like, what are the mechanics of how he
Yeah.
builds stories? How does he do this? He's also really kind and wonderful. And I've met him in person and he was really encouraging to me when I was starting out as a writer. So I think I was very happy to send him an arc. I emailed him and I sent him my arc when my book was coming out. And um, yeah,
That's
got a
fantastic.
shout out to him.
That's great. And I've only recently come to know his work, so I want to read more of his too, but not before I read yours. So I want to emphasize those of us who have more recently debuted, and then I'll go from there because I think it's
Yeah.
special. It's worth celebrating.
In terms of shows and any other media, like specifically for this book, the show Lost was a
Oh,
huge
yes.
influence for me as well. Specifically, the way that it tells two stories in parallel timelines. So you're kind of learning the this is how we got here story and seeing how the characters' lives interconnected in ways that they don't even necessarily know, like giving the reader that little
Right.
glimpse before the characters themselves get there. Um, and then, of course, like Star Trek is in the bones of literally everything that I write. All of Star Trek, I think there's themes that have persisted in right from classic Trek right up to all of the wonderful new Trek that's coming out now, which is there's always those themes of enduring hope and collaboration between people from very different places and different worldviews, and the way that kind of group casts come together. I think that that's always going to be in all of my work.
Great. Were there any movies, like, is there a particular era of movies that really influenced you, do you think, or any
Um,
movies that stand
First Contact, the movie First Contact.
out?
So actually I did my big idea post on John Scalzi's blog. If you go and check that out, it's all about how a particular scene in the movie First Contact kind of spurred one of the plot lines in my book.
Outstanding.
Um, specifically about how someone would deal with finding out that they're supposed to be a historical hero.
Oh,
And you would think that that would be a good thing, but it can be a lot to deal with because normally we don't really know where our lives are going to go
right.
to. We hope that we're going to accomplish our dreams and, that our lives are going to take a path that we've maybe planned out or hoped for. But if someone tells you that you're going to be literally crucial to the future of humanity, I think that is a lot to cope with. And a scene that's actually a really small moment in the movie just got me thinking like that's a whole book. Like how would someone deal with something like that? And I think one of the character arcs in Under Fortunate Stars is very much about that journey.
Oh, that's awesome. I can't wait to read it. I have to finish this book I'm working on before I have promised myself. After that, I reward myself with reading. So,
Oh, me too.
because this sounds like the perfect book for me. And shall I read the premise?
All right, let's hear
Let's
it.
talk about it. Here's the cover again. Beautiful cover. Look at that.
It was a beautiful cover.
Yeah, and yeah, so two ships, one chance to save the future. Fleeing the final days of the generations long war with the alien Phelan?
Hmm.
Smuggler Jareth Keevin?
Kevin.
Jareth Keevan's freighter, the Jonah, breaks down in a strange rift in deep space with little chance of rescue until they encounter the research vessel Galleon, which claims to be from 152 years into the future. The Galleon's chief engineer, Uma Ozaka, has always been fascinated with the past, especially the tale of the Fortunate Five, who ended the war with the Phelan. And when the Galleon rescues a rundown junk freighter, Ozaka is shocked to recognize the Five's legendary ship and the Five's famed leader, Eldrick Lisan Gronsky, among the crew. But nothing else about Lisan Gronsky and his crewmates seems to match up with the historical record. With their ships running out of power in the rift, more than the lives of both crews may be at stake. So I already love that there's this time premise in the history, as you say. Sounds fabulous. And it sounds like very much my jam. So Star Trek
I hope you'll enjoy it.
sounds a little bit like Farscape and Star Trek blended a bit with a bit of with Lost, as you said. So and Lost, I think, has it's influenced me in a different way. But it's funny that you should bring it up because the End at the Amethyst Lantern has some Lost references.
Ooh.
And
Okay, it's like moving up my list. I need it now. I need it now.
we're right here. We're like this together. So this is pretty awesome. And there's so much to talk about regarding debuts, but we'll get to that. So moving on to questions. So let's talk about your background, your education. I would love to know how your background in history and archaeology plays into your fiction. How would you say you are influenced by that, and how do you use it in your fiction? Or do you?
Um, Yeah, I definitely think I do. And the main character, one of the main characters in Under Fortunate Stars, is a massive history nerd. And her passion for history and her love for kind of collecting historical objects and unauthorized biographies and those all kinds of tidbits about the past is very much central to her character. But I think the way in which like my educational background would have influenced that is the way that we think about primary sources. And we, even if we have a lot of material evidence about something, even if we had, someone's personal journal, something that they themselves wrote down, there's always these gaps. There's no way that something perfectly captures what someone's life was. And there's also the questions about like who decides what was preserved and what was lost, who determines which version of something is written down. Like there's all these questions that you have to think about and interrogate when you're looking at a primary source, whether it's to try to discover something that more that you don't know about a person or a time period, or whether it's just to like broaden an understanding of something that you already know, or to challenge it. And there's just so much uncertainty. Like even if you had everything, like you had documented everyone's life, like to the point of a reality TV show, there's still like people's inner world. Like why did they make the decisions they did? What was really in their heart? Like when they wrote that journal, were they telling the complete truth about everything? And I think that this is the kind of thing, like Uma knows a lot about the Fortunate Five and specifically about Eldrick Leeson Gronsky, who's been like her favorite historical figure. And she's read all of his biographies and like watched his lectures and has this sense that she knows him. But when she actually meets him in person, she realizes just like how much more there is to him. Like he's been this person that's kind of a character to her.
Right.
But seeing someone living and breathing in front of you, like you're never ever short of time travel going to get that level of intimacy with somebody from the past.
So would you say in that regard, would you say never meet your heroes or definitely meet your heroes?
Oh, never, never, never. I mean, I think it would be difficult to resist, but I also think, even the concept of heroes is something, what makes someone a hero and what,
Right.
when someone does a heroic act, like say something that saves humanity, that doesn't necessarily mean that they're this like paragon of human virtue, right? Like they've
Yeah.
done a whole bunch of other things. Maybe they've done some not so great things in their life. Like, does that, is there this sense of balance? Like you do one good thing and then you do one bad thing, but that's not really how real life works. And I think that a lot of times, whether it's a hero who's alive, like someone that you really, really look up to, you really have to be cautious in a way of like dehumanizing someone by making them too perfect or imagining that they're a certain way because of what they've done. Ultimately, everybody has done
Yes.
some good things, some bad things, and some things that you don't understand. And um I just think that I probably would say don't meet your heroes, or if you do not expect them to be any kind of way. Like let them be people
Right.
and meet them where they are. I think this is most of us are not going to get the chance to travel through time and meet somebody, from the distant past centuries ago. But even in real life, like I think just meet someone where they are. Everyone is just a person
Yeah.
and they're more than what they've done. They're more than like the sum of what they've done.
Yeah.
Um, and I think it's always a little tricky when you project something onto someone that you don't really know.
Yeah, and sometimes I feel like, especially it's a very interesting premise, like meeting a historical figure like that, and I really love that. But even meeting someone concurrent in your lifetime, you have
Hmm.
to remember that, we've seen a square out of an entire quilt, and it's all we've seen.
Yeah.
There's a lot
A
more.
square on their Instagram feed.
I, it's truly. Very true. And yeah, the quilt might be quite messy with messy stitching and whatnot.
All
So,
those reels.
but it's, yep, yeah, real life, sort of. Well, that's really a cool premise, and I love that. So what would you say when you're working on writing? Like, I'm not going to get into the pantser plotter thing.
Pantser, such a pantser.
I
There's nothing
mean,
more to say. I never planned anything in my
oh,
life.
good. Everybody.
We'll just get that out of the way.
I'm more interested in not that sort of dipole thing, but more in kind of like how you go about your day. Like how does Ren
Okay.
Hutchings wake up in the morning, like the song, like she wakes up in the morning. So anyway, what does a writer in science fiction do? I like to ask this from time to time. So how does your day go?
So I wrote a lot of Under Fortunate Stars while I was also working a full-time job. And
Thank you.
so I would take the train into work, like basically to my work neighborhood 1 hour before I needed to be there.
Nice.
So I would write at a coffee shop for 1 hour in the morning, sometimes a little bit more, depending how early I got there. And then at lunchtime, I would say probably 4 days a week, I was also working on the book, but I would probably be editing something at lunch just because I might not have the full hour. And like sometimes it's a little bit chaotic. So I'd come to something that I've already done, probably a previous day, like not what I'd done that morning, because I usually let stuff rest a little bit before I edit. So I'm probably editing a totally different part of the book. I draft out of order. And so like I could just kind of pick something up that I wanted to look at again, like a different scene,
Yeah.
work on that. So that's kind of how my weekdays would go. If I was off or had time off, then I am very much a nighttime writer. I would start at 8 p.m., write until like 6 in the morning, and then go out for breakfast and then come back and go to sleep.
Impressive. That's impressive. I don't think I could do it. I have to. I turn into a pumpkin after a certain hour at night. So, but I'm always kind of
Also
a race against
realize
myself.
that I have like one song on repeat from 8 p.m. until 6 in the morning. Then there's certain songs that are really baked into certain scenes. That's the other thing
Yeah.
I do is like I usually have a song rotating, and then
Cool.
if I need to get back into that scene, I pop on the song and suddenly it's all back.
I like that. That's a really neat method to try. I wish I could listen to music while I write, but I can't. I have to have silence. But music
Yeah.
influences what I write. And like when I listen to a song, I'll have a
Mhm.
scene, and then I'll have to shut off the song, go write the scene. Yours way is much more efficient. So I love that. But so subgenres of science fiction. You've talked about Lost and You Live for Lost, and so I kind of wonder. Obviously, you like time travel stories,
Mhm.
some element of that and twists. But what are some other subgenres of science fiction that you find interesting?
Ooh, okay. Well, I mean, parallel universes is kind of to me like parallel universes and time travel often kind of go side by side or
Yeah,
even
true.
like have two of them. Um, alternate universes, I think, is a different thing. Like actually jumping to another universe and doing something as opposed to just having two parallel things happening. Um, I do really enjoy space opera. Space books are my jam, but near future sci-fi as well, I think is especially feels more relevant than ever. I
True.
am I'm an editorial assistant at Stelliform Press, which is an indie press that publishes SFF with climate themes. And I
Ah,
think that thinking about how to explore really quite serious and current issues, but in a way that's ultimately hopeful, is something that we really, really need right now. So I think that's something in the last few years that I've really been drawn to and that now I'm working on as well um, in my sort of editorial life. Um, and in general, I love ragtag groups of people that have to get together and make something happen, like whether that's a heist or whether it's like, a quest story, anything like that. I think subgenre almost matters to me less than the underlying themes.
that makes sense.
So I think that you could pick up a lot of stories and characters and pop them into any kind of setting and think, yeah, this is still going to work for me,
Right.
right? If it's like the ragtag crew in a cyberpunk city, or whether they're on like a planet that where there's also magic. Like I also love tech and magic mashups, those kind of stories that skirt the line between science fiction and fantasy, which I don't actually believe exists because genre is a construct. Stories that
Exactly.
just
Thank
mash things up,
you. Can I just say thank you?
um, yeah, I think those kind of stories where you're like, I'm not really quite sure which side of the shelf this would go on. It goes on my bookshelf. That's where it goes. So,
Amen. Amen to that. Because that's so my wheelhouse and my jam is kind of
yeah.
like, oh, I'm just going to put it all in a blender. And I love all those things, and you're going to have to whoever's doing the metadata. That's not my problem anymore. Let y'all figure it out. But it's just going to be fun, right? And that's kind of
Yeah.
so really
Hmm.
cool. So, what would you say is your dream sci-fi writing project?
Ooh, I would love to co-write. I would love to co-write. I think I've done, collaborative writing in fandom and just kind of like for fun. There's definitely writing friends that I really vibe with. And I think that if we could come up with the right idea, it could be incredible. Like to do something like This Is How You Lose the Time War.
Right.
um Either something epistolary or like multi POV, but actually having each voice written by a different author. I think that would be so much fun, and I can think of like a long list of people that I would love to do that with. So maybe in the future.
Let's talk about that because I've got something in mind too. So
Hmm.
sounds like it'd be right up your alley too. So we'll have to discuss.
All right.
Yeah.
You had just got into my DMs and
Yes. Yeah. Because I've come up with all these premises that I think by design require more than one author.
yeah, I think some kind of do. I
Yeah.
mean, ideally you could probably pull off different voices, but I think there's a different energy that comes when you're
Absolutely.
collaborating. And I think you get that sometimes, in TV writers' rooms when it really, really
Exactly.
works, when it
Yes.
really works,
Mhm.
like that bouncing ideas off each other and that collaborative energy that really brings everything to another level.
Yeah, and it just brings into sort of there's an electricity in the air, sort of an air
Yeah.
possibility there, and a little
Yeah.
bit of chaos.
And you can get yourselves excited about it. I think that, with any project, you kind of sometimes reach points where you're stuck or you're not really sure. And I've seen this with, I have a pair of mentees who are co-writers, and the way that they work together is incredible. Like there's always somebody that's not stuck, right? So you can always bounce over to editing something that they've done or just talking through a problem. And it's just beautiful. And I would love to do that.
Fantastic. I have to say, I have to give a shout out because editors are heroes, and I love that you're an editor as well. And
Um,
you editors make writers work better. You just do. And so I enjoy every process of that. And I'm curious, like, from your perspective, both as a writer and an editor, when you are How much of that can you step away from when you're doing the writing, or are you constantly editing?
Um, I don't edit while I draft. I very much
Yeah,
just
I like how you
draft headlong.
did the
I
different times.
also
Yeah.
often draft multiple versions of a scene. Like instead of going back and tweaking it, I'll literally just write it over again like 2 or 3 times. And then like sometimes weeks apart, and then look at them and see like what was always there. And then that kind of helps to identify the core of the scene and think, okay, that definitely has to be there because each time that I wrote this, even though I kind of
There.
put it away and started from scratch, like this was it, there was these 2 lines of dialogue, that is it, like the whole scene is spinning on this exchange. And it kind of helps to winnow out the stuff that I just kind of put in to fill it in and the stuff that really needs to be there.
Groovy.
um I also massively overwrite, so like my first draft of this book was almost 200,000 words,
Oh,
and
wow.
so I had to cut a third of it before I even queried this book. So I think I tend to kind of like whittle down, whittle down, whittle down instead of building out when I draft.
Yeah, that makes sense. It gives you more room to play, right, as well.
But I edit later. I feel like editing and drafting for me are separate. Some
Okay.
people edit as they go,
I can't do it.
and I just usually don't.
Yeah.
I mean, a little bit like on the line level, I'll read
Sure.
over it again
Right.
and kind of, but in terms of really editing it, I feel I need to, put on a completely different brain for that. And if I'm in an editing mode, it's also about rearranging because I draft out of order. So getting cue cards and
Yeah, true.
what order does this go in? Where does this scene go? Do we need this? And there's a lot of kind of structural work that goes into that stage.
Well, it would be a lot of fun to see how this would pan out as a show. Because I'm thinking in terms of the way that you're framing, the way that you do this, you sound like a show writer. So,
Maybe one day.
yeah, that'd be really cool. So let's see. I would love to know. This is just one of my fun, silly things. I'm always thinking with my stomach. So I'm wondering if you have like a special snack or a drink that you like to have while you write.
I always order a cappuccino when I'm writing. I would order in that cafe every morning a cappuccino and a glass of water to the point that they would be already making the cappuccino as I come in.
Great.
um, I don't usually eat because I feel like I'm just typing so in the zone. Um, Also, my computer is so old that I can drink a lot of my coffee while I'm just waiting for it to boot up. So
I feel ya.
it's like usually I'd have
Poured
like,
into
drink half of my coffee while I'm just like staring at a login screen waiting for it. But I like it. It just gives you that moment to pause and gather your thoughts. That's by design. So
nice. I love that you have a cafe that just knows. There she is. Here you go. Boom.
yeah.
Love it. Okay, so here's one of my little curveball questions. What's the one thing that would tip people off to your being human versus not? It's like a reverse Voight-Kampf test from Blade Runner. So let's do both. Let's do what would tip people off to, first of all, your being human, and then what would tip
Okay.
people off to your being a replicant. So let's go with human.
What is replicant? Okay, a replicant me if I don't reread an email like 50 times for typos before I send it. Like if I just did it once and sent it, definitely not me.
She's got an incept date, folks.
Yeah, never happened. Like I need to, if it's a 2-line email, like thanks, see you later. I'm like, wait, should there be a like exclamation mark? Is that too many?
That's the editor brain kicking in. Sure. Yeah.
Human crying at a commercial, like literally any ad that has like a pet or like two friends were reunited after a long time, like it's an ad for chocolate, like crying like in the movie theater if there's like an ad before, a trailer, anything, like a 2-second clip of some human interaction, and if it's cute or like touching in any way, I will melt down. So that's
I'm kind of sensitive too. So, wait, do you have any pets?
I do not at this time, but I hope I will get one day. I'm a cat person. Unfortunately, my cat died a few years ago, so I have not yet. I feel like I'm not quite there where I'm still like, but no cat is going to be exactly the same.
I know. I'm with you.
um,
I never got a
yeah.
dog. My dog died when I was 15. So,
I also haven't lived anywhere that like
yeah,
was,
same allows you.
allowed pets, and I've moved internationally a few times, so it's not like it's it's got to be the right time, but I think when the right pet comes, it's going to be obvious. And I hope it's probably going to be a rescue or like a pet where, someone really needed someone to take them, and I'll just be like, yep, you're the one.
You're a lucky pet. I know that.
Yep.
So let's get into some more juicy stuff. Like, what's the worst writing advice you've ever received? Just crap.
The worst writing advice. I think no writing advice is one size fits all. So anything that starts with you have to in order to be a writer is immediately bad advice. Um, you have to outline, like, no, I don't know what outlining is at this point. I'm too afraid to ask. That's that's kind of a joke, but I think that also, like, writing processes are tools, and you need to find the tools that work to enhance your process, not try to make your process different because a rule said so. So I use reverse outlining, which is a form of outlining that you do after you have some of your ideas already down. And it's the same process that I use this with my mentees. Like, think about, how does your brain work? What is comfortable for you in telling stories, and how do you find the tools and tricks and hacks that work for you that enhance that process? If you're not an outliner and you sit down and you like force yourself to do it, okay, maybe you'll be able to do it. Maybe sometimes you need to, right? You need to do a synopsis because you're under contract. But if you don't have to, and a slightly different way works for you, if you don't use a beat sheet like that, that's okay. Not everything is for everyone. At the same time, if someone does and that really works for them, great. But I think that my biggest red flag is any advice that starts with, like, if you don't do this, you're doing it wrong. There is no wrong way to write, and ultimately you're just trying to support your process to make yourself more efficient, or to make it like more pleasant for you, or whatever, to make your process better. And if you're using a tool that's making that worse and that's not helping you, then it's bad advice.
Amen to that. I agree with you. So, and let's flip that question on its head. And what would be the best writing advice that you could give to a writer who's just starting out?
Find your people, find your community. Writing in a lot of ways is solitary, it is, but having writing friends just makes all of the parts that are annoying, or points where you'll struggle or have points of friction, just makes it so much more worth it. There's a lot of things, especially if you're going to proceed seriously with writing, especially into traditional publishing or indie publishing, whatever path you choose, there's going to be issues that are really unique to that path and that are really hard to explain to people outside of the industry. So finding people that are on a similar path to yours, maybe even a little bit ahead of you or a little bit behind you, like coming up to the steps that you've done, make sure you reach back, the put the ladder back down kind of thing. There's always going to be somebody that is struggling with something that you already struggled with. And if you can tell them what you learned, like, you can make that journey easier for them. So I think just finding your community, finding people writing in a similar genre or in a similar kind of niche in the industry, and just enjoying each other's company as much as you can, like, and also celebrating them, because someone's
Yes.
always going to have some good news.
Yeah.
There's a lot of times in publishing where there's not a lot of news. There's a lot of silence, a lot of waiting. Some parts of it are kind of boring, like the administrative waits.
True.
But there's always someone with good news. And if you surround yourself with friends that you can be excited with, then you're always going to have something
Yeah.
to keep
And
you going.
I can't emphasize enough how much I agree. And I also laud you for forming your own writing community currently, that you're taking on this wonderful, idea of, let's help out the debuts for the next couple of years and this year and the
Oh,
next
right.
two. And
The
so,
sci-fi debuts.
right. So
Yeah. I
I
was like,
love
which
that.
one? Because I'm in a
Well, I mean,
few.
whichever ones that you're in, I love the sci-fi debuts. Obviously, I'm a little biased there, but it's just really so comforting because we're all in these different stages. I'm
Mm-hmm.
coming crash landing my UFO from indie publishing into traditional, And you were there to
Hmm.
just kind of pull me out of that crashed ship and kind of guide me. And I love that. And I appreciate it very much. So it
Oh,
is a
I'm so
different
happy.
world, but we all still have
Yeah.
similar challenges. And we all face, no matter what avenue we go through for publishing, we all need this community, as you've said. And I just
Yeah. Just
so
makes it
grateful.
fun.
It is
It's
fun.
like your fun coworkers, right? Like you can work with all your favorite people all the time. But
And
it's
not
more of a co-working space. You're all working on your
true.
own things and then
Yes.
just
Which is pretty neat when you think about it because we have such individual and unique and personal projects, but we're still
hmm.
part of a group, so it's a very interesting work environment, so to speak,
Yeah.
which by nature we have to be insular. We have to go into the contract with our minds, and
Hmm.
but then we have to interact with each other, and it's nice though to have that, and just I want to thank you for that.
Oh,
So,
thank you for being part of it.
oh,
Also, you
my
get to
honor.
get sneak peeks at like cool work that other people are doing
It's
early.
new.
Like, something that you beta read like a year ago is like now going to have arcs, and I'm like, oh,
I mean, that's
I
pretty
already
thrilling.
saw it.
It's
It's
pretty
good.
thrilling. And I love that too. And I also want to say I have to just gush about the swag for Under Fortunate Stars.
Oh, I wish I
So
had some here. I should have prepared some. Oh, you got it.
wonderful swag that came with
Yeah,
the book that just
look at
adds to
that.
the world building. Beautiful bookmark.
Bookmark.
Then
Yeah,
we have these.
bookmark.
It's a Segra City. Is it Segra? Segra City?
Siegra City.
Segra City.
Yeah.
Little stickers, and
Little
then
stickers. Zaycorp.
decor, and then you had this beautiful. I haven't put it in the book yet, but you have this beautiful book
Book
plate
plate.
that I got signed.
Yeah.
I really appreciate. So that's another thing that I think is so much fun, and I love that
That
you.
was a lot of fun to make.
Yeah, and I love swag, love. So I was completely thrilled, and thank you again. Um, so I want to talk about now, like, what are you working on that you can talk about, and what's your next project?
What am I working on? So I'm working on two different projects on and off because I tend to kind of incubate ideas for a while where I get to a point with them, then I put them aside and I come back to them periodically. And sometimes I revamp them completely, and other times I'm like right back in it and I know where I was going with it. So the one that I worked on the most recently, I actually started as a series of flash fiction vignettes in this event called Flash Fic February, where they gave you a prompt every day and you had to kind of write 300 to 500 words, however much your goal was, using this word or an image that related to it. But I ended up just using them as prompts for scenes, and then I just kind of kept going with that project because they were all linked together. So now I've got like quite a lot of words on that. But I think I'm also kind of interested in trying to write some shorter fiction.
I was gonna
So
say,
I don't, I've written some short stories, but they tend to be more like incomplete pieces of something where I'm like, oh yeah, this is a chapter from a book. Like it's not truly a short story in the sense that it's self-contained. It's more of a nugget of something that isn't quite what it is yet. But I think I would really like to try to actually learn how to write something shorter. And maybe in the new year to like submit some short fiction somewhere, which is
I
like
hope you
something that
do.
I've never done before. But
Oh my gosh,
craft wise, I think it would be interesting to try
it
because
is.
it's so against how I normally work. Like I am a long writer, and I think that there's a special kind of skill. Like it's a totally different skill set to make a story that's bite sized and still so complete. I love reading short stories, but I'm willing to learn how to write them. So that's kind of maybe a next year goal that I would like to try out.
Outstanding. And I highly encourage it. And this is something that I came into. I had started some short stories many years ago and I kind of let them drop. But one of them I just literally dug out of a closet from the 90s and I sort of expanded that and reworked it.
Mm-hmm.
But I've recently written a lot of short stories and I know that it is a different skill set, but I think it helps with other forms of writing. You kind of all
Mm-hmm.
weave together. So I would just love to read any short fiction that you write. And I hope that you do, and I hope you submit
You've got a
lots of stuff.
collection though, right? Like you've
I do.
got
Yeah. Coming out
is
in
it are they
21.
related? Like they're all kind of are they tied in? They're all in the same universe or they're more
They're wildly different with some exceptions. The Shadow
okay.
Galaxy, which is out in March, has different genre short stories. There's sea stories, science fiction, fantasy,
Hmm.
magical realism, horror, and Appalachian stories. And but some of the cosmic horror stories could definitely happen in the same universe. Some of the
Ooh.
gothic horror stories absolutely are in the same universe.
Yeah, this is like
Um,
the genre mashup thing though, right? Like
a little bit like Stephen King
most.
has kind of like this through line
Yeah.
of villains and things like that. There's a little bit of that
Mm.
going on, but and then I seem to have a penchant for writing robot stories, especially cranky robots, and
Oh yeah. Robots with personalities.
yeah, and then
Is-
space
yeah,
libraries. So it's like I like writing about space libraries. I don't know, but I could just see you
that's
just I
great.
being a tremendous short story writer. So
Oh,
please
thank you.
do it, submit. I know you'd be
I'm
amazing.
just
Get out
like
there.
speaking of space libraries, there's just something that's like just so interesting that happened is that when you put something in your story, and it could be like a tiny little piece of world building or something that you just, thought about enough to flesh it out in as much as it was needed, but it's in like one scene.
Yeah.
And then you get that one reader that just zooms in on it and is like, I was fascinated by that one little
Yes.
tiny thing. So there's in one of the flashback storylines, there is an archive where they're building a kind of collective archive of songs, poems, books, like where they're asking people to contribute their favorite things because they're trying to make this kind of doomsday vault in case humanity ended or at least was partly wiped out. And so they're
Right.
trying to preserve um some of like their favorite things and like little bits and pieces of their lives. And I have a friend who's an archivist who was like, oh, I was fascinated, but like, I wonder what kind of cataloging system they were using for that. And
Oh,
like, how are
yeah.
they? I was like, I don't know, but that's amazing. Like the fact that this obviously, as far as it's in the story, it's just this one scene where they talk about it, and one of the characters is a volunteer for it. So she's going around and asking people to like kind of upload files and to make a little cache in there. But like here's someone who's like, this is amazing, like this is the part of the world that I feel I could live in and like
Yeah.
do this in, because there's someone doing my job in space. And like it was just so cool, like thinking
Wonderful.
about how people zoom in on different details and
Yeah.
just fall in love with that.
Yeah. Yeah. And I had someone read Ephemeris, the second book in the Questrazon saga, which is my 4-book space opera series, and he was talking about the relationship between Galadea and Ariad, and he wanted more. And I'm like, oh my god, I feel like I spent half the book on them, and this person still wanted more. I was like, are they that captivating? I didn't really think about it. Like I'm just writing them the way that they're, dealing with what they're doing. But I find
Yeah.
it so fascinating that we as writers, we're building, for lack of a better word, a sandbox for everyone to play in, and they're going to find stuff that we put there that we forgot or didn't realize or whatever. And it's so
Yeah.
fascinating.
But I think also if you come back, you're writing a series, right? So there's probably things that you came back to in a future book that you didn't know were going to be quite as important, but you
Yeah.
kind of unearth a little nugget of something and you think, oh, I could do more with that. Or like, oh, I left myself this little breadcrumb trail
Oh, I
to
do that all the time.
come
I
back to.
intentionally do that. Like I leave little clips. Like even in Heliopause, only anybody who had read all 4 would pick up on a lot of the hints that I put in there. Because I had the callback through the entire series, and that was always planned because I'd written it so many years ago, and like
Yeah.
I knew the end game, right? And I knew where to plant little hints. But the casual reader of that first book is never going to pick up on those in a million years, which
Yeah,
is
I guess
fine,
I
you know.
do always know the ending that I'm writing. Do I say,
Yeah,
I pants everything? Yeah,
you know
but
the
I know the ending. I know the big themes,
yeah.
and the rest is like, a journey of how did we get to that ending. But I know the character arcs, like always. Um, I mean, this book in its early versions had kind of a pretty different plot, but the character arcs were basically what they are. They've always been what they are. The lessons that the characters learn, the relationships that happen between them, they're very much in there regardless of what the framing story was like. And I think that's definitely something that I already have
Yeah,
in mind before I start drafting anything.
fantastic. Well, that's lovely. All right, well, this has all been very exciting, and like I said, I can't wait till you write some short stories. I know you're gonna kill it.
Oh,
So,
now you gotta like get on my case. Like,
ah,
where is
I
it? Where
will.
is
I
it?
may be
Gotta
like
do it. Now
the,
I've said it. I've said
you
it
know,
now. Like it's here on the
short
record.
story evangelist is like I'm gonna be like,
Yeah.
pardon me if you heard about, or anyway. because I think it's just so much fun, and it is
Yeah.
forcing you to work within various tight boxes. Like some of them,
Hmm.
like Flash, are like this, and then you'll have some longer ones, and some amorphous in betweens. And boy, there's a lot of fun stuff you can do there. And if you write a bunch of them, then you make them a collection.
I
Look at
might
that.
have to start at novelette and work my way down because I don't know if I can
That'd be
get
fabulous too.
shorter than that. That's
Well, I mean,
probably
we're really in a renaissance of novellas too. So there's that,
yeah. Oh,
and
I love
kind of
novellas.
somewhere in between, right? There's short fiction and
Hmm.
long, and so
Yeah.
yeah, I can't wait to read your words, to follow your journey,
Oh,
and
thank
be
you.
part of this
Thank you so
community
much.
that you're building. So, on that note, are there any other things that you'd like to tell readers and writers that I haven't asked or talked about?
Um, I would like, oh, you should go and check out the song that goes with the book because there's a folk song which was about the Fortunate Five, these famous heroes,
Cool.
and we recorded it for real.
Wonderful.
I co-wrote it with a friend who is the lead singer and songwriter of the band The Burning Hell, which is a indie folk rock band from Canada. They're awesome. They have a new album out too, so go and check them out. The Burning Hell. Our track for the book is called The Flight of the Jonah. It is on Spotify, Apple, the usual music places, and it's also on my website. So I think there's a link on the books page where Under Fortunate Stars is. Please give it a listen because it is amazing, and I'm so proud of it. I think it's just one of the coolest things that we did for the book, and um, yeah,
Wonderful.
go check it out.
Ren Hutchings, wonderful to have you today on Sci-Fi Author Chat. Go get Under Fortunate Stars, her debut, and I know we're going to see and hear a lot more about Ren in the future. She is a wonderful voice in our writing community in any genre.
And go and get
Thank,
Heliopause, the first book of four. So
thank you.
pick it up.
All right.
At TBR, we get a buddy read each other's
That's
books.
you know what? I'm absolutely down for that. Well, Ren, wonderful to have you today. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right.
Thanks so
And
much.
you're
It was a
welcome.
lot of fun.
It was for me too. Thank you. Ad Astra.